Hello there everybody, welcome back to Beyond the Cowl. You've got Sammy here. This week for Unit 1 Week 10 we're going to be doing the basket weave stitch. Now if you are adding onto your blanket you're going to do a row of single crochet. If your blanket's 120 you'll need to do a little bit of adjusting, so you still have a single crochet of 120, but when you're working your rows of 2 to 5 there'll be a slight adjustment there, which I'll mention as we're working them. If you're starting fresh, you want to do a chain that is a multiple of 4 plus 3 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, working into the 4th chain from the hook, you're going to do a double crochet. Now if you're adding onto your blanket, you've done your row of single crochet, so you'll do a chain of 3 as your first double crochet, and then you'll work a double crochet into each stitch all the way across your blanket, and that will be our first row. I'll let you guys work those double crochet and I will meet you back here for row 2 when we start adding the texture to get the basket weave effect. See you all soon. Okay, you've finished the first row of double crochet. Just done a chain of 2 to begin our second row. Now as I said, if you're working on a blanket that's 120 wide, there's a slight adjustment here. So in your next stitch, after your chain of 2, that'll count as your first half double crochet. You'll do a second one in the next stitch and you'll add 2 on at the end of the row instead of just the 1. Now working from scratch with the correct number of chains, we're going to do our chain 2, which will count as our first half double crochet. Then we're going to go next stitch, back post double crochet, 1 and 2, and then 2 front post double crochet. So we've got 2 front posts, 2 back posts, 2 front posts, and repeat. 2 back post, and 2 front post. So we're going to repeat that all the way across to the end. Finishing off, you'll have 1 stitch left where you'll put a half double crochet. Unless you're working on a blanket that's 120 wide, and then of course you'll do 2 half double crochet in the last 2 stitches. But it's just that repeat of 2 front post double crochet, 2 back post double crochet, 2 front post double crochet, all the way across the row. So you can see that texture picking up really quickly. I'll meet you back here for row 3. Our first row is done. Beautiful texture there. Some chaining 2 to turn over. Now this next bit is going to be dependent on a couple of things. Firstly, if you are making adjustments, you'll do your 2 half double crochet. So your chain counts as the first one and then you'll do a second. If you're not, depending how many repeats you did across will depend what stitch you use first. So if your last stitch was a back post double crochet, your last 2 stitches here, then you're going to want to do front post double crochet. If they're front post double crochet, you're going to want to do back post double crochet. Ugh, that's going to be a pain in my tuchus. There we go. So you're just working the opposite of the stitch below. When I say opposite, if it's a front post double crochet, you're going to work a back post double crochet. If it's a back post double crochet, you're going to work a front post double crochet. And you'll be repeating the same pattern again all the way across until your half double crochet or crochet Z, as in 2 of them, at the end. So just working the opposite stitch all the way across. And that's how we get the beautiful basket weave design. So repeat that all the way to the end. And then we're going to be repeating that for as many rows as we require. So if you're doing a row a day for a temperature blanket, you could even just do a repeat of a single row rather than the 2. Entirely up to you. Alright, I'll meet you back here in a moment just to show you how that's working up. I'll see you soon. Okay, we're back. I finished the second row. I'm just going to see. Okay, so you can see the front post sitting there, the back post kind of making lines all the way across. Now for row 3, I've just chained 2 and turned over. So this is what I was looking at when I was working row 2. You can see the lines there. Now turning back, and we're going to repeat the same pattern all the way across. So our chain 2 is our first half double crochet. If we're doing an adjustment, we'll do our second. I'm not. So my last 2 stitches here were front post double crochet. So my first 2 on this round will be back post double crochet. So always working the opposite into the stitches once we've turned to commence our next row. So it's a nice simple pattern. It is a bit of a yarn eater, the same as the waffle stitch, and anything where you're working a lot of front or back post double crochet. So we're just going to repeat that pattern for every day if we're doing a temperature blanket, or to the size that we want if you're using it for a separate project. I hope you've enjoyed learning the gorgeous basket weave stitch. It's very simple once you know how, and so visually effective. I hope you all have a fantastic day. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, happy hooking. Alright guys, I finished row 3. Now row 4 is a little different in that we're not working the opposite stitch into the pattern. We're working the same stitch. So I've done my chain 2, which counts as my half double crochet. If we turn over, we can see front post double crochet were my last 2 stitches, so they're going to be my first 2 stitches. So we are working the same stitches so that we can achieve that cross hatching pattern. The same stitches, just rather than working the opposite stitch into each, we're working the same. So we're working front post double crochet over front post double crochet, and back post double crochet over back post double crochet. And that's going to give us that nice woven look as our project grows. So the repeats for this pattern are rows 2 to 5. You could always split that up a little if you're not wanting to do 5 rows a day on your temperature blanket. Just remember which number you're up to so that you can follow on with the appropriate repeat number. Okay, so you can see that pattern starting to cross hatch now. I'm going to finish out this row. I'll meet you back here to show you row 5, and that'll be our final row for this week. See you all soon. Okay, we've finished out row 4, and you can see how the structure of our pattern has changed, and our raised stitches are in between the ones from row 1 to 3. So we're going to repeat that, turning over, chaining 2, and then row 5 we'll be working the opposite to what we did in the previous row. So if you're doing an adjustment for 120 count, you'll do a second half double crochet. I'm not doing that, so I've got my half double crochet. Previous row, my last 2 stitches were front post double crochet. So on this side, they're going to be back post. And then front post for the next 2. So we just continue repeating rows 2 to 5 until we reach our desired length. And we continue that pattern all the way across to the end. You can see we've got lovely raised stitches on our first 3 rows and then in the center. And you can see how the back post is making a cross section between those raised posts. I really hope you've enjoyed learning the beautiful basket weave stitch. It really is gorgeous. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, have a fantastic day and happy hooking.